and change, some news this morning.
Yes, earnings next week, what some do call the Super Bowl of earnings. So we have got a couple of analyst calls out today, one of those being from Morgan Stanley, now raising the firm's price target to 206 from 200, right now at 182 and change, keeping an overweight rating on the shares. Expectations over there have risen ahead of these earnings, and the analyst says rightfully so. And that is because the firm has been pretty bullish on this name. It adds it to the optimism that centers on what lies ahead. So this is perhaps not a now story, but certainly something that we look at in 2026. Says that supply is what matters on the night of the earnings call, but demand is what sets it on that path for the future. The firm is now modelling $46.6 billion in revenue for the July quarter, so that's what they're setting their expectations at. That is higher than what they were previously forecasting as well. They do note strong demand from NVIDIA's customers, adding that the strength has persisted beyond the company's largest handful of spenders. And you've also seen Cantor Fitzgerald also upping the price target now to 240. So that is very much on the higher end here from 200. So a significant jump, you could say. Keeping an overweight too, rating on the shares there. They've been talking about the Blackwell ramp up underway, seemingly insatiable demand for AI compute. And very much bullish on the confidence in a path to $200 billion, $300 billion in data center revenue for 25-26. And so they are fairly optimistic and encouraged here by the future growth potential from a company like this. But, you know, it's interesting. There's a headline out today that China is requiring data centers over there to, you know, use 50% of local chips, which is fascinating because that's really been the headline that's been driving a lot of the attention in NVIDIA recently, with that H20 being able to get back to this market. But as we know, China's still playing very much catch-ups in that space too.
All right.
As investors consider rumors on its upcoming generation of AI processors and anticipate its earnings report next week, NVIDIA gained ground early Monday. After dropping 0.9% on Friday, NVIDIA's stock was up 1% to $182.24 in morning trading. Both the Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500 saw mostly flat trading. Prior to its results announcement on August 27th, NVIDIA's stock is probably going to be range-bound. According to Morgan Stanley analysts led by Joseph Moore, supply concerns are the gating factor for sales, even though the short-term bar is now higher. The 12-month picture for demand, supply, and competitive outlook is still quite positive. The analyst kept his rating of overweight, but increased his price objective for the stock from $200 to $206. Regarding company-specific issues, NVIDIA has denied an analyst report that claimed it was postponing the manufacturing of its next-generation Rubin hardware in order to better compete with rival AMD's chips. Jefferies analysts said such worries are probably exaggerated. William Beavington, a research note released on Sunday by Jefferies equity sales specialist, stated, "We believe the timing is on track for production to start in 2Q26 and server volumes to start late 3Q26. We are not disputing whether or not a metal change may have been required, as is the case with many chips. Thanks to its new Blackwell architecture and the growing demand for AI, NVIDIA is poised to surpass Wall Street's predictions once more." The company's data center division continues to be the major growth engine, with a solid sales prediction of $48 billion for the second quarter and projections for further growth through 2026, setting NVIDIA up for long-term leadership in AI infrastructure. Citing the company's Blackwell-driven data center growth and the quick acceleration of AI spending, Cantor Fitzgerald analyst C.J. Muse has increased his price prediction for NVIDIA to $240. Considering that NVIDIA's revenue is anticipated to exceed consensus projections through 2026, Muse keeps his overweight rating on the company. Muse cited the company's new Blackwell architectural ramp and the growing need for artificial intelligence computing. When NVIDIA releases its fiscal second quarter results on August 27th, the analyst anticipates another good beat and a raise. In contrast to the average estimate of $45.8 billion and $1 per share, he forecasts sales of $48 billion and EPS of $1.06. Muse predicts that data center sales alone will generate $42.9 billion, making them the primary engine. With data center contributing roughly $49.9 billion, he projects $55 billion in sales and $1.25 in EPS for the October quarter, which is once again higher than the consensus of $52.6 billion and $1.18. In the long run, Muse projects that NVIDIA's data center will generate $200 billion in 2025 and $300 billion in 2026, which is significantly more than the $181 billion and $235 billion that the street currently predicts. In 2025 and 2026, he expects earnings power of $4.85 and $800 per share, respectively, versus the consensus of $4.37 and $5.89. He pointed to a $1.5 trillion worldwide sovereign AI investment pipeline, rising business adoption, and rapid hyperscaler capital expenditures, which are predicted to increase by 57% in 2025 and another 20% in 2026. Although Muse agreed that China continues to have challenges because of export limitations and taxes on H20, he contended that the majority of sell-side models already do not account for that revenue. Any unexpected shipments to the region could consequently bring upside to existing predictions. He added that the mix shift to Blackwell products and continuous efficiency improvements could help NVIDIA's gross margins hit the mid-70% range by the end of 2025. NVIDIA's roadmap beyond Blackwell, which includes its Rubin platform, the analyst emphasized, further improves visibility into 2026 and sets the company up for long-term leadership in AI infrastructure. With the acceleration of Blackwell shipments and the arrival of Rubin systems before 2028, NVIDIA's data center revenue reached $39.1 billion in Q1 FY26 alone. Even while AMD and Intel are gaining market share, they won't be able to overcome NVIDIA's supply chain advantages and CUDA ecosystem by 2028. NVIDIA's pricing dominance is sustained over the course of the decade by the trillion-dollar AI infrastructure build-out, notwithstanding the possibility of a government ownership in Intel. Growing rivalry in the market for artificial intelligence, AI chips, is making Wall Street more cautious. Even while NVIDIA still controls over 80% of the market for AI training and deployment, competitors are beginning to achieve significant design victories. AMD has gotten Microsoft, OpenAI, and Meta platforms to use its MI300X CPUs. So what implications does this have for NVIDIA's stock? Let's explore that. But first, a big thank you to those of you who've stuck with us this far. Creating these videos takes significant effort and dedication, so if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts on NVIDIA stock in the comments. Your support truly helps us grow. Now let's get back to the video. In the meantime, Intel is discussing possible investment assistance to speed up its production and foundry expansion with the U.S. government. Bears contend that NVIDIA's market share is unsustainable, particularly in a sector that is vulnerable to upheaval, but that perspective ignores the wider picture. Even a little portion of a much larger pie can provide significant profit, as the market for AI hardware is expanding from hundreds of billions to trillions. More significantly, NVIDIA maintains a full-stack advantage that combines ecosystem support, developer adoption, hardware, and compute unified device architecture, QDA software, forming a moat that rivals have not yet been able to match. Don't waste your time worrying about market saturation. The data presents a different picture. Morgan Stanley estimates that the major four hyperscalers alone will invest $300 billion in AI infrastructure by 2025. According to Dell'Oro Group, back-end AI network switching, a clear stand-in for graphics processing unit, GPU cluster scale, will reach $100 billion between 2025 and 2029. The market for cloud and data center accelerators is expected to reach $151 billion by 2029, according to Omdia, with growth only slowing down, not reversing, after 2026. NVIDIA's fiscal 2026 first quarter performance provide context for this prospect. The quarter's total revenue was $44.1 billion, of which $39.1 billion came from data centers alone. The $39.1 billion from data centers in 3 months is not a typo. At this size, the absolute dollar opportunity continues to rise even if NVIDIA loses 10 points of market share. A monopoly share is not necessary to compound revenue when your addressable market is growing by hundreds of billions of dollars every year. NVIDIA is in control because it owns the stack, not because it produces the fastest CPUs. For training huge models, CUDA has taken over as the standard environment, tying developers, frameworks, and tools into the NVIDIA ecosystem. Training can smoothly spread over whole racks because to NVLink and NVSwitch, which enable its GPUs to connect at bandwidths that PCI Express cannot match. The bottlenecks are significantly more significant upstream. Taiwan Semiconductor's advanced packaging capability for CoOS is restricted, despite the fact that production is predicted to roughly quadruple in 2025 and then rise once more in 2026. According to industry reports, NVIDIA has largely obtained that allocation, which means competitors have less space to ship in large quantities. The second choke point is high bandwidth memory. With Micron and Samsung Electronics continuing to increase capacity, SK Hynix continues to be NVIDIA's top supplier. While others wait in line, NVIDIA's accelerators are guaranteed to hit volume thanks to priority access to next-generation high-bandwidth memory nodes. This combination of privileged supply allocation, connection scale-out, and software lock-in is not a temporary advantage. It is a years-long structural moat. Without access to these same resources, rivals cannot achieve significant volume, even if they create robust alternatives. Because of this, NVIDIA's premium valuation encompasses more than just market share. It's about controlling the rails that the AI economy is built upon. Let's face it, AMD is a legitimate competitor. OpenAI has hinted that it will use AMD's most recent CPUs in addition to others. Meta openly uses MI300 class chips for Llama inference, and Azure's ND MI300X VMs are widely accessible. Software support has really improved thanks to ROCm7 and the AMD Developer Cloud. Here's a reality check, though. Last quarter, AMD's whole data center generated $3.2 billion, primarily from EPIC CPUs rather than GPUs. In around a week, NVIDIA completes the task. For certain workloads, particularly inference, AMD outperforms in terms of price and performance. It limits NVIDIA's pricing at the margin and provides hyperscalers with bargaining power. However, overcoming CUDA's gravitation will take a software revolution that won't occur before 2028, in addition to competitive hardware. The Trump administration is reportedly exploring a government investment in Intel, which makes the scenario much more intriguing. If that occurs, Intel benefits from steady factories, lower capital costs, and preferential treatment when it comes to government contracts. However, it doesn't address NVIDIA's platform cadence, NVIDIA Link Scale, or CUDA lock-in. Gaudi 3 is being distributed via IBM Cloud and Dell Technologies AI Factory, with the goal of outperforming H100 in certain workloads at a lower cost. However, in terms of overall performance and ecosystem support, it still lags behind Blackwell and H200. The basic case until 2028 is simple. NVIDIA dominates training workloads due to platform innovation and demand growth, while AMD and Intel rise as more affordable options. Although NVIDIA loses some market share to less expensive rivals and keeps 70% to 80% of the training market, its absolute revenue increases as the industry expands. The bears are concerned about supply shocks, power limitations, and customized chips, but none of these risks materialize quickly enough to throw the plot off course before 2028. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.
Good morning, Nicole. Yeah, as you kind of talked about, a little bit of weakness when you're looking at some of the sectors, but if you're looking at the price location for the S&P 500, this has been a key area of support around this level, if you will, around that 6440-ish area. So if we're looking at the levels for today, that's going to be the first one that you would expect or hope that some buyers will step in. You can look over the last couple of trading sessions here. We have been hitting this lower end of this range, buyers stepping in and then trying to push higher here. Now, what's actually very interesting is this consolidation leading into Jackson Hole on Friday. What you would like to see if you're a bull is kind of breaking above that 6485, 6500-ish area, going into Jackson Hole, and then hopefully having enough volume to sustain higher for us to really get to around 6600 here. What you do not want to see is any type of breakdown below that 6440-ish area. You're looking at 6400, and once again, you don't really want to see that from a bull standpoint. That would obviously kind of lead to a little bit of uncertainty and potentially a pullback going into a seasonally weak period for the S&P 500. So we've done a phenomenal job over the last couple of weeks here, but last week just kind of showed that we just did not have enough strength, especially when you're looking at information technology, to really push us higher. The sectors or the industries like semiconductors were relatively weak. NVIDIA wasn't really able to get out of its way around that 180-ish area. This week you want to be able to see the semiconductors as well as NVIDIA really gaining a little bit more steam here in order to hold this market up from a broader standpoint.
So I'm looking at the 10, thank you for all of that. I'm looking at the 10-year bond yield sitting at 432 this morning. We're waiting for Jackson Hole's speech later this week from Jay Powell. The likelihood of the Fed rate cut in September is at 82.9%. What are you seeing when it comes to Treasury volatility? Why is this an important conversation? What do you watch?
Yeah, so a couple of things here, Nicole. I mean, the last time that we've seen some rate cuts coming from the Fed, the market has actually front ran that, especially when you're looking at the 10-year Treasury. And are we seeing kind of the same situation happening now where the 10-year hit around 4.2% early last week before bouncing higher? But what we're looking at here is the Treasury Volatility Index, or the MOVE Index. Think of this as the VIX for Treasuries just itself. You can see that we've had this pretty decent breakdown over the last 3 years or so. This is a 3-year weekly chart, and there's an inverse relationship with Treasury volatility moving to the downside and equities moving higher. What we're looking for this week, do we actually see a bump up in that Treasury volatility index just in general here, leading up to Jackson Hole and then also going into the Fed meeting in September. But this is actually one of those indicators to make it really, really simple for those that are trading the broad-based index. Volatility, and this is a 1-year chart of that MOVE index, I just have this inversed so you can see the relationship with the S&P 500. Basically what you want to continue to see is Treasury volatility continuing to crush. That has been conducive for equities moving higher here. Any type of reversal in that trend, especially a sustained reversal in that trend where Treasury volatility actually moves a little bit higher, that could also lead to the S&P 500 pulling back here. So a really interesting relationship, an inverse relationship between Treasury vol. But we have seen Treasury volatility actually spike up a little bit as we lead up to these major events from the Fed, which is not surprising as uncertainty around commentary is going to be key for not only equity traders but also fixed income traders here.
Okay. And then